We're going to, first of all, talk about millennials, who probably live more in that world than most of us. And we have a very interesting panel compiled for you today, which consists of 4 contributors and a moderator. The contributors are Stuart Stone, who's Director of Business and Creative Development of Vice Media. We have Alex Powell, who's a change agent from GumboLive. Alexandra Goat, who's Client Services Director of Livity.co.uk, and Lorenzo Cantini, who is co-founder from Kentstrapper. I'm very disappointed that none of these people have actually an abbreviation behind their name, but there you go. The session will be moderated by Sarah Ivey, who's Global Chief Strategy Officer from Initiative. But before we do all of that, there's a brief video to introduce the session to you.
Our generation has been struggling to find a secure job. A lot of people that were being let go of, and if you had a good job, you would just stick to it, even if you really hate it, because it would be very hard to find something else.
I was out of work for 2 years, and so now I'm starting all over in a new field, in a new industry.
Obviously, that the sense of insecurity remains.
Con una inflación importante y mi salario no condice con esa inflación, siempre uno queda como, digamos, desparejo con el aumento de precios que hay.
If you take only the opinion of your friends are, if you want, in a way similar to you, so their feedback is all of them are going to give you the same feedback.
I think in general, aesthetic has become like a huge part of our lives these days with Instagram and with Facebook.
There's much more fun and then much less serious.
You need to be different, you need to come up with creative advertising and not only the product itself.
Like the whole idea of being hip is being like different and having a product that allows you to be seen as different.
Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome. All right. I welcome to the stage our brilliant panel, and I'm sitting right amongst them because it makes me feel energetic. Just going to give you a quick round of introductions so you know who's who. To my right here, and I get right and left confused, so this is Alex Goat from Livity. Welcome, Alex, from UK. I got the amazing Lorenzo Cantini from Firenze, who has his own 3D printing business. He actually makes 3D printers, got into the market 3 years ago. And Alex Powell has joined us all the way from New Orleans, Louisiana, after 24 hours of nightmare travel and missed 2 connections. So Alex will probably have a moment or two during our conversation. She works for GumboLive, which is a rethink tank centered in Louisiana that focuses on ideas. Similarly, Alex Goat works for Livity, which is this amazing youth engagement agency centered out of London but has a lot of global work. So we've got a very, very interesting panel. Unfortunately, Stuart Stone couldn't make it. He had a very last-minute crisis, so we wish him the best, and I'm sure we'll see him again. So I'm going to start off. You saw the video, and we undertook this research because we realized that we didn't really understand, coming now that the 25 to 34 millennial generation is older now, right? And has gone through a lot of changes, a lot of challenges, and we wanted to get a temperature check to understand how they're thinking about brands and marketing. So I'm just going to start the conversation rolling, and I think, just for fun, I started this research with the idea that this generation has to be far more creative in terms of how they approach their careers. I have a philosophy major, I have an archaeologist, and I have an industrial designer, none of whom are in their jobs that they originally trained for. So what do you think? Do you have to be more creative as you move through your careers, as you make life choices?
Yeah, I definitely think so. I mean, I think have to be more creative, but have the opportunity to be more creative, which is a really exciting opportunity. I mean, the young people that we work with are probably doing 5 or 6 different things at any one time, and that might be starting their own business in their bedroom because you don't need a business loan anymore, and studying something and doing an internship somewhere else. And that opportunity to try things and find a way to collaborate with multiple different sectors is a really exciting way to begin and continue your career.
Yeah. And Lorenzo, you were saying that you had a choice. You basically had to either leave school or start a job. How did you end up in the job that you're in right now?
I think that when you came out of university, you have to make a choice. Or you try to find the job of what you have studied, or you have to make a different choice. You have to create a job because no one can take you and make you a career if there is no job. In fact, in today, unfortunately, there is no job security. So you have to take different choice, brave choice, and maybe if you have the help for someone, you can go on and straight this all difficulty. But if you are alone, you have to reinforce your mind, take more about what you want to do in your near future, and take choice that you have never dreamed about it, I think.
Yeah, I'm going to come back to that. Alex, Powell, what do you think? How did you forge your career path? How did that work?
Very randomly, actually. Generally just through people that I had met that were doing interesting things, you know, giving me a lot of opportunities. And I think there's a lot more openness to do things that are similar to your major or whatever you've been doing. I think employers are more willing to hire people a little bit differently, and also that there's so many more specialized majors now that you kind of have to be more flexible.
Yeah. Yeah, I had an interesting comment in one of our call groups that you had to pretty well know everything about anything because you had to have that level of flexibility. I'm going to come back to your comment about being brave, because I noticed when we looked at self-employment statistics all across Europe, Italy was double that of the UK. It blew my socks off. Why is that? Why do you think that is?
Oh, I think that in Italy there is an ancient tradition of craftsmen, of people who loves to make things with their hands. So we have my grandfather. He's also a craftsman. He also loved, his life to make things with his hand. He never asked someone to make things for him because he always thinks, okay, I can create it myself with my hands. Yeah. And also I think that when people are in a difficult situation, they don't have to stand and wait for something. They have to take, okay, I have to handle it, because I think that the future, we don't have to wait the future. We have to make it for us, this.
Yeah, the woman that we interviewed in Mumbai basically said that it's all on me. Did you ever feel like that?
I don't know, I'm probably at the top end of the millennial generation now, so I'm kind of lucky enough that I felt like I had that kind of opportunity. But I think there is a lot more emphasis on those coming up through that now than there ever has been before. But the work that we do, we see such a huge emphasis on enterprise, and it's really exciting. It's like it's the most exciting thing that I've seen working in and around youth marketing and youth enterprise for 15 years. Yeah. And it's, I think stats from RBS in the UK, the number of young people in the process of starting a business last year had doubled from the year before, even just in 12 months.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Now you saw the stats in terms of how worried this generation are. We actually benchmarked this against a previous study. It went up. That really worries me. Why do you think, are you feeling that in the projects that you're working on?
I think so. I think people assume that we would bounce back really quickly, and we haven't. And there is more instability around energy, around climate change, around democracy, around so many things. And I can't open up a newspaper now without being asked the question, am I going to be worse off than my parents? Yeah. And that's just depressing, essentially. But it's just being asked, you know, it's being asked the question constantly that you have to then think. So I think it's probably the sustained period of time with which these things haven't necessarily bounced back, whether that's the economy or the job market. But the 16, 18, 20-year-olds that we work with actually have quite a lot more optimism than I think the generation that we're all in now.
Really?
Yeah,
that's really cool.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I don't know why. I think they're probably born into slightly more resilient times and just and know that they do have to be more creative.
Yeah. Now, the other thing we noticed too about worrying is that money was at the heart of it. They were worried about having enough money day to day. They were worried about getting out of debt, getting into debt. I'm wondering if this is related to how people shop. Because when we look at the amount of research that they do for any purchase, it's through the roof and it's way higher than even talking to their friends or colleagues. Do you think that's part of it? Do you think that's why online research before you commit to any product is so significant? What do you think, Alex?
I think so, definitely. I definitely have observed just a lot less buying small purchases in general. I mean, people are much more careful with their money. They're spending less money at bars, less money on clothes, like less money on things like that. And I also think just because of the timing, you know, I graduated college in 2008. It's now 5 or 6 years later, and it's around that time in my life where people are saying, you know, get it together. And, you know, you're going to need to buy a home soon and a car, and I think that is even increasing the worry even more.
Yeah.
And so I don't even spend a lot of time thinking about small purchases. It's sort of, you know, how am I going to get out of my student debt and pay for health insurance and keep my job and have a car and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, we noticed in the US data there was a much higher rate of giving recommendations to friends. Do you think that's true? Is that your experience in terms of, do you actually actively review? Do you encourage that in what you're doing in terms of the ideas that you're working through?
Absolutely, yeah. If I find something that I really like, that especially, you know, durability and good quality, I will definitely talk about it, and I'll definitely ask people before I make any purchases of anything more than, you know, a beer or dinner or whatever, you know. I think that's really important to us.
Yeah. One thing that we did notice, so we measured this group between 25 to 34, and there's this massive pivot somewhere around 30 in terms of how people are using social. Before 30, it's kind of what, you know, the selfies and the self-expression and expressing yourself and being the first to talk about stuff. After that, it's shifting into more collaborative, making experiences more helpful for others. Has that been your experience? I mean, in your work, does it show up? Does it?
I mean, it does show up, and I guess for me, if you just take it away from the social aspect, that's probably how people mature in life anyway. Your 20s is about you and what you want to do, and your 30s, you're trying to find your place in the world and your place in your family. So I guess there is that element to it, but I think the nature of social means that you can, and whether that's from a business point of view or whether that's from a local community point of view, those things that you become interested in as you cement your roots somewhere, social enables you to do that in a really, really different way than you ever were able to before.
I think, social is become collaborative because allow people to get connected for each part of the world. So through the internet, you can stay here, but here another person that is set in another part of the world. And one of the most important things is that some project came through thanks to internet, thanks to social. As in my case, that I developed a project thanks to the internet collaboration. Yeah. And before is not guaranteed this communication. So I have a problem, I can face to them in which part of you are, and then get together a solution to this problem. So it's incredible.
Yeah, have you found that really?
Yeah.
Because you're in a really unique situation in that you have both consumers as clients and businesses as clients, so it's used kind of differently, right?
Okay, yes. In fact, social is a way to get close to the customer because I can also hear what he really needs. So I can send you a simple email, stay in contact, I have friends together, they say, okay, I really need this product, so you can make this for me. Yes, I think that collaborative for a company today is one of the very important things to have because, in fact, social marketing, also advertising is very important.
Yeah. Now, let's talk about collaboration because what I noticed in many of I've had the pleasure of judging the Festival of Media Awards in the last couple days, and the amount of, we have some competition here. The amount of crowdsourcing that's going on is pretty significant, and I notice that in a lot of the work that you're doing as well. Do you guys think that crowdsourcing is now an expectation from this generation in terms of the ability to actually speak directly to a marketing campaign? What do you think, Alex?
I think so. I think it's one of those things that goes without saying, like having a Twitter account, you know, for pretty much everything. It's just sort of expected now.
But do you think people in this generation expect to be crowdsourced from for everything?
I don't know if we expect it, but I think we appreciate it when it's done well, but when it just feels like noise or attention getting for, you know, crowdsourcing for the sake of crowdsourcing, I think that makes things lose their sort of honesty and their feel for us.
Where do you think the line is on that one?
I don't know. I mean, I guess at Liberty we co-create everything with young people, which means that we involve people in every stage, and that might be insight, that might be design, that might be execution, and I think that enables us to have a much more authentic connection with our audience. But at the end of the day, if you're a marketing company, you still want the creative genius that sits within that. So there is probably a level with which you kind of, you know, you can ask people, well, do they want A or B, and that's okay, but you probably don't say A, B, C, D, or F, or make something up yourself. And I think that's where the quality of and the craft of what marketeers do can sometimes then die a little bit.
I want to talk about Facebook, and the reason why I want to talk about Facebook is because I think it's emblematic of this generation. I had a really interesting comment from one of our guys in Dubai that basically said, we've grown up with Facebook, and actually that really struck me, it's really true. And then I saw a great article last week about 824, this online delivery service in the US, broke up with Facebook publicly. They published a letter in which they said something like, you're not the smart, cool social network that we fell in love with. Which I thought, I wonder if you guys feel that way, if the generation feels that way, that Facebook has gone that far and it's sort of emblematic of the erosion of trust in social networks. What do you think?
I mean, I think Facebook, it's ubiquitous. I mean, I think I remember 4 or 5 years ago thinking I can't imagine a world without Facebook, and now I can imagine a world without Facebook. And so for our generation, it feels like a useful mechanic without being something that's completely integral. But for a younger generation, they're not interested in it, because why would you do that? Because your parents are on it, you know, and it's not mobile friendly, and you know, there's loads of different things, and it's not as visual. There's a number of different reasons, but I think it will be here for the considerable future as well, just for its size and its ease and its connectivity.
Yeah.
So.
What do you reckon, Alex? I mean, I actually see an increase in Facebook usage across the demographics that we're looking at in the US. What do you think? What do you feel?
I feel it's sort of one of those things that's a given. You know, everyone has it, but I think our biggest problem with it is that it tries to be all things to all people. So it's trying to get everyone, and it's bringing advertising in, and it's being photos and events and a feed. It's, you know, I think it's just muddy now, whereas something, you know, Twitter and Instagram have that purity and that ease of understanding, and they're one thing, and they're continuous, and they're variations on a theme, and I think that really appeals to us. I mean, Tumblr is a huge thing, you know, things that you see a lot of one thing. It's very clear and easy to understand. Yeah. That appeals to me, and I think it appeals to a lot of other people too.
I think one of the Facebook, it was interesting, a few years ago we were working with some brands who kind of went, F-commerce, we're going to try and sell through Facebook. You know, that's a really interesting example of trying to be everything to everybody, and kind of, you know, selling quality products through Facebook just didn't work. So you kind of think it is trying to do a lot. Yeah.
So one of the things that really blew my mind was how much creativity is rated in brands. When you probe on that, not a lot of people can describe what creativity is. Now, you're in the business of coaching businesses to be more creative. How do you talk them through that conversation?
I think that creativity is a key of a company, because you have to create, you have to be more creative in order to share to everyone what you make, or use a new different kind of communication in order to make people conscious of what you make. So if you make a product, yes, it's important to sell the product, but if you don't make the people conscious of what you make, you cannot sell this product. And so creativity is also in the way you create all the service that make the customer feel important. I have to get involved with you to my product in order to make me conscious of what we really need. So creativity is a key, especially in today where there is a lot of opportunity of job. I have to be more creative, more smart in order to get out of this situation.
Do you think that that affects how people feel about brands? In that they feel they have to be more creative themselves, so they put brands through that same thinking? What do you think?
Oh, I think that everyone has a brand that truly liked it. So if I see a brand, maybe I can be more creative. So I see the brand and they have a really good idea. Why cannot the same idea? I can develop it. So maybe having a brand creative makes me truly creative myself.
Okay. One thing we picked up too in the research is that people recognize that creativity is harder and harder and harder on behalf of brands. Do you think we're tapping out? Do you think it's getting more and more difficult to actually be creative as a brand?
I mean, I think the bar has been raised by individuals. So as you know, if you're talking about Tumblr, or if you're talking about Instagram, you know, the quality of what we can all produce as individuals ourselves is so high and so amazing. You kind of think someone else that's spending hundreds of thousands or millions of pounds, they've got to produce something that's really, really amazing for me to think it's better than something that my friends can create. So I do think that, but I think there was a really interesting point in your video, which is around people appreciating aesthetics, and people still do that. I don't think brands are kind of at a loss, but we just need to find ways of helping them make them feel more relevant. Yeah. And we noticed that with creativity, and also, as we were talking earlier, about a sense of purpose and young people wanting to understand whether it's for a business that they're going to enter or a brand that they're going to buy, what that purpose actually is. And that is all tied up with creativity, I think, and actually a sense of where that sits in the world.
We probed on that sense of purpose in terms of whether brands should do good. And nearly everyone said yes. Nearly everyone had a very specific point of view on brands actively getting involved. But I think that's kind of tricky, isn't it? I mean, you do a lot of work in this area. How authentic is it for brands?
I mean, I think for most organisations now, they are trying to find what that sense of purpose is. And as I say, that might be on actually what their product or their service does and how they can make that meaningful. It might be looking at their audience, but it might actually just be looking at the way they communicate. And if you can involve individuals and you can find a really creative and engaging way, and I always kind of think brands should make people care or make people laugh, one of the two things. And you know, if you can do one of those, great. If you can do both, even better.
Alex, Powell, what do you reckon? Is it too hard to be a brand with purpose in a deeply cynical world where there's so much expected of marketers?
It can, again, I think there's so much of an emphasis, not necessarily on creativity, but honesty and transparency, because we want brands to behave like the people we like, right? We don't want them to be really noisy and sort of unfair and sort of lying and putting on a front and that kind of thing. We want them to feel like people we would like to know. So I think sometimes a brand will say, oh, it's this cause, and it feels a little ham-fisted and forced and therefore not genuine. So I think I'd rather a brand not do it in a way that feels fake. You know, I'd rather just a genuine thing that they're doing.
Wonderful. Okay, quick wrap up. You saw the stat. One quarter of this group doesn't have a favorite brand. Quickly, what's your favorite brand and why? Alex.
Wow, that's a tough one. What's my favorite brand and why? Probably, I'm being very British here, probably the BBC, just in terms of its integrity and its idea. It's going through a very troubled time at the moment, but I'm really interested to see what happens. It's not my favourite brand, but it's a brand I think is really interesting.
It's a tough question,
yeah,
isn't it?
It's a really tough question.
Lorenzo, what's your favourite brand?
Oh, I think that I have really studied the story of Olivetti, because it's very incredible what
so
very incredible. He started from truly idea, and then we create a company on his idea. So I think it's very incredible what he have done.
Cool. All right. Alex, last word. Favorite brand and why?
My mind's blank right now, of course. There's a brand of shoes called A Regular Choice that does amazing things, even though their advertising's terrible. But I like shoes. That's it. That's all I got.
Wonderful. Okay, guys, thank you very much for coming. We will be here over the next 2 days or so. If you have any questions, we're here. As you know, we love to talk. So thank you again. Okay.